2, 3, 4. Welcome to Off Panel, Sketch.com's weekly podcast. This week's podcast is a special one, as it's the Holofoil acetate cover with a hologram 50th anniversary, 50th episode with Brandon Burpee, my longest compatriot and compadre in the comic book writing world. Brandon, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I love anniversary stuff. We both do. This is well tread ground if you followed anything we've ever done before. So the fact that a 50th episode comes around, you have to better believe there's going to be an awesome celebration for it.
Exactly. I mean, just to play it back a little bit, if you didn't watch Four Color News and Brews, which was our video,
suck.
Yeah, our video show back in Multiversity Comics, we both actually separately made I don't know, what do we call them? Like holofoil cover or like holofoil costumes for our 100th episode. So I made like a blazer that was entirely covered with tinfoil, and Brandon like covered his like Wolverine. What is that? Like a Wolverine hoodie?
Yeah, it's a Wolverine hoodie with the pullover mask, and I just put tinfoil all over it.
So I showed up to his house, and then we got on our costumes, and we walked into the room, and we were both wearing basically the same thing, because that's how much we feel anniversaries. But so for this week's off panel, we're going to go a little bit different. Normally we have like central topics we're going to talk about, but there's been a lot of stuff going on. So Brandon and I wanted to talk about a little bit of everything. But to start with, we want to talk about anniversaries, because you know, anniversary issues when we were growing up, when we were first getting into comics, were a huge deal. Mm-hmm. And when we say anniversary issues, mean like number 25, number 50, number 75, et cetera, like once you get into the hundreds and stuff like that, that continues going on. But Brandon, like, what was it like when you were a kid? And actually now, I guess, what was it that made anniversary issues so cool and interesting to you?
I think, at a young age, they're throwing those hot gimmicks at you. We grew up in an age of like trapper keepers and like, flashy, flary stuff. And so if you're walking through a store and there is a card with a hologram Wolverine on it, you're going to stop and grab that thing, and it's going to seem special because I had never seen anything like that in my life. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, with stuff like that for me, I was big into the trading cards at the time. And they sometimes had inserts like that. And so all of a sudden you've got a comic and the card, and it's like number 50 in big print, and something crazy is happening, like Wolverine's losing his claws. And you're like, what is happening with the world? It's just like, it was mind blowing at that age. And then it's just kind of died off, which is crazy to me, because I think some of that, like, they're trying to draw in a younger crowd, and it's not working. But that's the kind of stuff you kind of got to swing for the fences at, I think, again, is really get people,
Well, yeah, and I think the interesting thing about it is like, people look back at the 90s and stuff, and they look at it like they look at those covers as being a bad thing. But the interesting thing is those covers weren't variants. Those were just the covers.
Right.
And like, I had actually kind of forgotten about that, but then I did this big variant piece, and I was like, wow, all those were actually just the regular covers. And I think the fact that was like the one option you had made them stand out so much more, because you're like, this is, I mean, when you're looking at the stacks of comics and everything, like, we're both big cover guys, right? Mm-hmm. When you look at all these stacks of comics and nothing stands out, but you have this one that has like a super dope Wolverine hologram on it, you're like, I want to know more about that. What's going on with that? And so you want to pick it up. But I think the cards thing is a perfect note, because it's like trading cards were a huge deal back then, and they had all those inserts and everything. And so the comics were kind of just like commodifying their comics with the same idea. But at the same time, like, a lot of those comics were actually like, I don't even know how they planned it to be exactly like that, but it was like 25s and 50s and 75s were always like these momentous issues. Mm-hmm. And somehow they never really felt that forced. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, and I think some of that also plays into like the age we were at the time, where like it all was just so fresh and new.
And everything was awesome.
Everything was awesome. But I do think they made a more concentrated effort, though, for sure, to at least like build plot lines to, culminate in one of these anniversary issues. But yeah, like, they just don't do it the same way anymore.
Yeah. But okay, so before we move on a little bit onto the next topic for anniversaries, I want to talk about our favorite anniversary issues. Brandon and I both put together a list, and I have a feeling we're going to have very, very similar lists. Brandon has 6, I have 8. I'm going to start off with one that I know that you're going to have on your list, because it was like literally the first thing that came to my mind. X-Men number 25. Fatal Attractions,
Yep, that's on my list.
Wolverine's adamantium was removed by Magneto during the whole like fatal attractions thing, where Colossus was already an acolyte, or acolyte then, wasn't he?
He was. He dipped out at his sister's funeral, and Magneto and them came down.
Yeah, so it was all basically about like Magneto trying to like get shit on lock, and then like issue number 25 was like Wolverine having his adamantium pulled, and then like Xavier, like Professor X, wiping Magneto's memory, which is kind of interesting because like that was the moment that actually started the wheels turning for Onslaught years later.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, like, so that was on your list too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like yourself, I was a big fan of the animated series, and I read a little bit of like Batman comics here and there, but I had never really dipped into the X-Men comics that much. I actually had the cards a little bit more before I had these.
Mm-hmm.
But like when I got into X-Men, like this is what was happening as far as getting into the comics. So like I remember going in, they had the 25 had the holographic Gambit on it.
Yeah.
And I just remember just moving that thing at the little BX on the base that I lived on, just moving the cover up and down, up and down. And my dad finally was like, "Do you just want to get that?" And I was like, yeah, I guess. Like, I really just wanted the card. Like, I really, like, because I was collecting the cards. I got home and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then, you know, following that, obviously, Wolverine 75.
Oh, yeah, that's on my list too.
Yep. So, and that was also on my list. And so those two at the same time were just like, okay, yep, this is real. My love is real. This is going to be a forever thing.
I remember very specific. So Wolverine 75 was the issue that followed X-Men 25, part of the Fatal Attractions, like little crossover thing. And it was like Wolverine dealing with the fact that he lost his adamantium. And I remember like this is like, I don't know. I don't remember when the comic came out. It was probably like 9 or 10 when it came out or something.
That was like 93.
Okay. So I was 9. So like, I remember when that happened, I remember like feeling like actual anguish for like Wolverine in that issue. Yeah, I remember like trying to explain to my mom, I'm like, seriously, you need to know how big of a deal this is because Wolverine has lost his adamantium. She's like, his what? I'm like, God, read comics, Mom.
You don't understand anything.
Seriously, God. And this was before I was a teenager, so she clearly was going to have fun in a few years. But that was, I mean, like the Fatal Attractions thing, while like, you know, you look back on it and people could, again, like sass it for the fact it was just these hologram covers, that was like a super big deal for like Marvel or specifically X-Men comics back then.
It was. And, you know, also I thought like for me at that time, what also made some of these special was just being the right age at the right time because you know, I had all these iconic heroes, you know, that I'm getting from cartoons and, you know, Batman, because I loved him from Batman 66 and Superman from the George Reeves movies, or Christopher Reeves movies. And then like almost all at the same time, they started breaking them and killing them and tearing stuff out of them. And these anniversary issues, anytime an anniversary came out, I was like, oh my God, who are they going to mess with this time? Like they just need to leave them alone. Like this is just messed up. And so, yeah, it was crazy. And the same thing, like, I remember trying to explain to my dad, I'm like, all right, so he doesn't have the adamantium anymore. And my dad's like, well, when we watch the cartoons, he has it. And I'm like, well, they obviously made the cartoons and then they made the comic, like trying to figure that out with my dad. And him just kind of humoring me. But yeah, like that was such a crazy issue because I was just like, I didn't know you could do this.
Yeah. Well, and I also remember like that was kind of it was momentous too because it was the first issue that he realized that his claws weren't like part of the adamantium. The claws were an extension of his like mutant powers, and you're just like, bone claws, what the fuck? That's crazy. Okay, so you know, right at the same time there was some issues. So DC was doing the same thing, and while I'm not going to lead with the obvious one, the one that really blew my mind for DC was Green Lantern number 50. It was Emerald Twilight. It was when Hal Jordan like mowed down all of the Guardians and he was like killing like Kilowog and everybody. And it was when he was going like straight up evil. It was like pre-Parallax, I mean, I guess he was Parallax by the end of it, but it was like before we knew what Parallax was and everything. Right. And then, and it was also the first issue where Kyle Rayner appeared. But like that, and another one on my list is this, maybe the most obvious that could possibly be Superman number 75, you know, Death of Superman, Black Polybag and everything. Those two issues, the interesting thing about like DC is like, while Marvel was obviously changing their characters like forever, or not forever, but you know, for like several years with these, like DC was straight up killing their characters and like replacing them for like extended periods of time. And it was while they came back, like Kyle Rayner was Green Lantern for what, like more than a decade.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because now Marvel basically does that. You've got the female Wolverine taking place of the Wolverine who died. Like, you have multiple versions of characters running around. Like,
Yeah.
It's interesting how cyclical all that stuff is.
But were Superman 75 or Green Lantern on yours?
Superman 75 100% was. I actually had, and I'm sure this is well covered ground for anybody who's listening to this, but like, so I didn't have the polybag version, but my dad's coworker's husband did. And he wouldn't open it, and he kept telling me Superman had died, and I was like, no, because I remember when I was a kid, somebody had showed me like a Mad comic where like the Ninja Turtles got turned into turtle soup, and then my parents explained to me what that was, and I was like, never buying into that again. So he was trying to convince me that he had died, and I was like, no, that's not true. And then we were at the BX, and again, I was a military kid, and I'd seen, like, it was crazy. So, like, at the BXs, they would have a spinner rack, or they would have a wall shelf that they would put the comics in. And usually it was a pretty weird assortment, and they could be from, like, anywhere from, like, 3 months old to, like, 9 months old, because they didn't just get rid of them. They just held them.
Right.
And it was the weirdest thing, because when I came in, I knew this was something that was, like, really big, because there was like 3 rows probably of like 10 comics up and down, and they were all Superman 75.
Wow.
And I remember just being like, whoa, like, I've never seen this before. But they didn't have the poly bag, because I think that was just a comic shop location thing. So I just had like that image of like the stick with Superman's tattered cape on it, and I just thinking like, holy shit, they really did kill him.
That was
and
such
then
an
after
iconic...
that, there was and then there was stuff on the news about it, and it was nuts.
Well, and that, you know, the funny thing about the black polybag is like so many people know that, but that cover to 75 was actually super iconic. Like, it was like, it's a really powerful image, and like, you know, obviously Superman came back in several different capacities, but like at the time, I was, again, I think I was like 9 when this happened, but I remember I walked in a parade at like Bosco's Comics in the Diamond Center, which is a mall up in Anchorage, Alaska, with like a bunch of people like celebrating Superman. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, it's like a legit thing.
Yeah.
All right, so what else you got on your list? What's another one you have featured?
Let's see. Another one I've got fitting around that same time for me was Batman 500. It's that cover with like you know, the new Batman just straddling Bane like he's just whipped his ass. I had, like I said, at the time initially collecting, I had bought Batman comics here and there because I just loved Batman. And I remember going in and seeing this one, and sometimes at the BXs they wouldn't get like consecutive months issues, so you would just maybe have spotty hits. So it went from like Batman to like whatever this was, and I was like, what the hell happened? I'm like, Batman has a crazy awesome new suit. And then I got in there and they're like, Jean Paul Valley. I'm like, who the fuck is Jean Paul Valley? Where's Bruce Wayne? Like, I was so confused. And then like after this came out, it was months before another Batman or Detective Comics came in. So I was like, I was so confused about this series at the time. And then not too long after that, a couple years later, we moved to Alaska. And then I ended up going back to Eagle River Bosco's when they had it. And that's what I bought initially, was Superboy comics, because I saw the Superboy thing with like the leather jacket, and I thought he was amazing. And then I went back and started filling in my Nightfall collection, because I was like, I got to know what the hell was going on here, because I went like years before I knew anything about anything, because there wasn't internet back then, kids. That you could just whip open and look it up. Like, you just had to try to guesstimate what had happened, and that's hard to do when you've got one issue out of like a year's worth of that title. So it was nuts, but I'll never forget that comic. He's developing the suit and flying for the first time with it. It was just so badass. I
was going to say, like, I think the lack of the internet played a big part in these issues feeling as crazy as they were, because
for sure.
I mean, like, we didn't know. I mean, like, a lot of this stuff, like, I went into Bosco's and I got Wolverine number 25, and I opened it up, and like finding out that Wolverine had lost his adamantium was discovered when I saw it happen on the page. And I was like, I just remembered like being like, this can't be real. What is this? How could Wolverine lose? Like, that's like making Wolverine not Wolverine.
Serious.
And I was just like, it was like, in that moment, it felt like life altering. Obviously, was not life altering, but it felt life altering. But that's the interesting thing is like, because without having the internet there, like that we were like isolated from, I don't know, like all the stuff that the internet provides us, which can be a good thing, but at the same time, a lot of times for narratives like that, it can be a very bad thing.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and it's interesting like that. But anyways, so I have there's a couple small ones I wanted to mention before I move on to like another one I liked. But when I was looking through it, I was hilariously enough, I was digging through some old wizards I have to try to see, like, okay, remind myself which ones are 25s and 50s and 75s I liked. And then I mentioned Onslaught earlier, but I really loved Onslaught, and I was super jacked. Like, I was so into that story as it was developing, because you had no idea who Onslaught was. You just knew it was like this thing that was changing everything for the X-Men. And X-Men number 50 was like actually his like first cameo, and it was like the first appearance of one of his heralds, like with Post. And it was like, it ended up being basically, I actually reread this issue earlier, and it was still kind of awesome. It's Scott Lobdell, and it was Andy Kubert, and it was like Wolverine, Iceman, Storm, and Cyclops versus this herald of Onslaught. And I just remember like not really knowing what all this meant, but I was like crazy into it. Anyways, and then another one, like, while I didn't get this at the time, it's hard to not mention Amazing Spider-Man number 300, like when you're talking about, like, you know, these anniversary issues, because like that was the first appearance of Venom. It was also like when like the black symbiote suit was really like changing everything. It was when Spider-Man first like embraced like the red and blue costume again, and like that was a game changer. Like that's one of those comics that like really, I don't know, it stands out in like the history of the character, and that's a character that's had a lot of iconic moments. So those are two small ones. What's another one for you?
Another one for me, while you're mentioning it, that I hadn't thought of before, and I'm not remembering the exact number right now, but the Hickman issue. Oh man, what number was that
For Fantastic Four?
Yeah, remember that, like, closed out his issue. Wasn't that an anniversary issue? Didn't that coincide with an anniversary?
I mean, like the last issue I believe was like 587. I don't recall. I mean, I guess it depends.
Maybe not.
I guess it depends on what we mean by anniversary. If we mean it's like a 25, 50, 75, probably not. But if it was like just like, I don't know, this is like the 70th anniversary of Fantastic Four.
I think it was Fantastic Four 600.
600. Oh, that was a really good issue.
Yeah, like, and it had all of them in the white suits on the front. I think it was like a giant, crazy sized issue too.
Yeah.
Isn't that where like no, maybe it is. Is that when Human Torch came back? It was
that
like
was when he came back.
Galactus or whatever.
I'm flipping through it right now on Unlimited, and it was when like all the shit was breaking down. Spider-Man was on the team, and then it ends with Peter ending up in the negative zone, and he's like looks over, and like Human Torch is like, Pete, what the heck are you wearing? And he's got like Annihilus in like a I don't know, leash basically. Anyways, yeah, that was a really rad one.
That was a fun issue.
That was so good. I'm glad
wasn't originally on my list, but while you started talking about some of those, I was like, oh yeah.
It's actually funny. I was like looking through all these, and I couldn't find anything from like current times really, but that one was a really good one.
Yeah. Outside of that though, like current times ones, it's funny you say that. Like, I think my newest one on my list is at least a decade old now. Like, because so I have also on here, and this one's more than a decade by a long shot, but new X-Men 150, the end of the Grant Morrison stuff, before he did the Future story, and where Wolverine offs Jean Grey. I loved that issue when that came out. I thought that was awesome, and it was a fun ride for the Grant Morrison stuff, because initially I was so jarred by the different look that I really wanted to hate it. It was so weird, because that was like, for me, like the same thing with X-Force, which later became X-Statix, which later became one of my favorite series of all time. But like, I've talked about this before, like I hated that they were doing that. I just hated that they were changing basically my childhood. They were coming through and getting rid of everything I loved about the X-Men costume and aesthetic wise, and we're just making it weird and like creating new relationships. And I thought it was awful. And it was funny, like, as a comic fan, I kind of grew with that series, because by the end I was like, wow, that was such a well-told story. And I was less concerned about like, oh, well, the costumes aren't blue and gold. So like, it was interesting. So that culminated in that, and it was just like, wow. And then I really didn't care for the next thing that they did with the Phoenix Egg and all that.
Yeah, that was okay.
I was like, you guys should have stopped at 150.
That, you know, the funny thing is like I've only read New X-Men in like omnibus form, so I actually had absolutely no idea that was issue 150.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is like you know, like kind of like with the internet, like maybe sometimes like because people are reading collections and they read omnibuses and things like that. I wonder if sometimes people don't even realize that they're even reading those anymore.
Which is crazy to think about, but I about guarantee that happens.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the last two I have on my list are one is kind of a cheater one. Well, kind of. I mean, it is a 50th issue and it is like a double size issue, but it wasn't like, it's not a superhero book. It was Preacher number 50.
Oh, nice.
It was this. You read all of Preacher. It was a story about Jesse meeting up with his dad's, like the guy he saved in Vietnam, and the story of how Jesse's dad got the Medal of Honor. And it was a great issue that really like set up like the rest of the series. I think there was only like 10 issues left from there, but it was just like the beginning of the end, and it was in many ways had absolutely nothing to do with the story, but it was like setting up Jesse for what he needed to do. And then the last one I wanted to include was the first story that got me really into the Flash was Terminal Velocity, and it was an event about like Cobra with a K, like trying to take down Keystone City and like trying to like take down all the Flashes and yada yada yada. And nice. it was Wally West and it was Bart Allen teaming up, and it was Max Mercury and it was Jay Garrick and et cetera, et cetera. And anyways, in like the previous issue, I believe it was the previous issue, like the Flash actually passed into the Speed Force. So like this issue was all about like Linda Park, his girlfriend, or actually nice. His girlfriend at the time, trying to rally the troops and save like the city from Keystone or from Cobra. And anyways, and it ended with like, Wally West coming back and like becoming like this energy being and being like, bitches, I own you. And then, him and Linda Park embracing and yada, yada, yada. But that was the arc that actually made me love the Flash. So that was a big one. I think you got one left, don't you?
I do. The last one I have on here is Captain America 25. Following right after Civil War,
Winter Soldier.
Shot.
Yeah.
I that kicked off, like you mentioned just now, Winter Soldier, which for me was like one of my favorite Cap runs, which is odd because Cap wasn't in it, but
that was when he died, right?
Yeah, it's the issue right after Civil War, and it was crazy because Marvel really didn't put a whole lot of crazy hype behind it. And I remember going into the store and seeing the cover and being like, oh, what is happening here? And at the time, who was working at Bosco's that day? Jared and Will and someone else. Oh man, I can't remember his name. He would put out the comics before he got fired or quit or whatever, mm-hmm. and he would take forever because he would read them as he went. He's a huge Quasar fan.
I don't remember him.
You'd know him if
I'm sure I would.
You might have even worked with him for a little while when you worked there, when you were a kid. Or no, probably not. Sturgis. Is it Sturgis?
I don't remember.
Anyway, so I remember Sturgis. I think it was Sturgis. He was like, "Hey man, did you read Captain America yet?" I'm like, "No, like I just walked into your store." It's like, he's like, "Oh, I just read it," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, don't say anything." He's like, "Dude, you got to know though, like that last," and I'm like, "Whoa." And I remember Jared just being like, Sturgis, don't be an asshole. And like Jared just went off on him. And I still didn't know these guys that well. And I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. This issue must be amazing because these guys are fighting over telling me or not telling me.
That's hilarious.
So I know as soon as I got it, I went home and I just, did my business and then started reading it. And I was like, oh my God.
That was like one hell of an issue too. And I mean, it's like, not only was it like a perfect, like, it was you're killing Steve Rogers, but then beyond that, it was like a perfect culmination of like where the Winter Soldier arc had been going, mm-hmm. and it was also a great culmination of like the Civil War storyline. It was kind of like this perfect like storm of awesomeness.
Yeah, it was awesome, and Civil War was so good.
So, those are our favorite anniversary issues, but I'm curious, like, we've already kind of touched on it a little bit, but why do you think, like, it feels like those 25, 50, 75 issues aren't nearly as, like, important and impressive as they used to be? What do you think the main reasons for that are?
Trade paperbacks.
Yeah, I think that's one of them.
I think it's just the fact that, like, everything is put out and it's less about hitting those milestones because those milestones they've almost got a stigma to them now. It's like, you've been running too long, so we got to restart you because people don't have the attention span to follow this. And I think I blame a lot of that on the internet too, because I know it used to be such an adventure to go and like track down comics, because you couldn't just jump on a Marvel Unlimited and find that issue, or you couldn't just go torrent it if you're inclined to do such a thing. You just had to go find it if you wanted to read it, or buy trades. And so now though, like, people just don't care about that collectability as much, I don't think. And so trade paperbacks are dominant now, and they cater more to that. You got to make sure that it fits into 6-issue, windows. That way you could compile it into one book and continue to make volumes. And I don't know. I think a lot of the structure of how comics are told now are so different, and they make those issues just less important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think it is kind of interesting how, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's really necessarily collectability is the right word, because I think that, like, I mean, you're talking about like all those books that we just mentioned. Like, the reason why we love them so much is because we were reading them and we were so into them, and they just happened to like be where those stories were crescendoing to. I guess you're right in the sense that instead of building to, like, I was talking about how like they always seem to build to those moments. They weren't trying to build for like that big beat at 25 or 50 or 75 or 100 or whatever. They were trying to build for that big beat at the end of the 5-issue arc or the 6-issue arc.
Right.
And then beyond that, I think another thing is just the fact that like so many books don't get that high. I mean, look at all the DC books. Like, they just got the 50 or like 50, 51, 52. And like, I'm not reading like any DC titles. I don't know if any of those 50th issues really felt like anything like it was a game changer.
No, because the Batman 52 issue, like, it was good, but it really didn't feel like an anniversary type issue. Now, the one that has a great opportunity to do so though is Superman 52, because that culminates the story of what apparently looks like the new 52, Superman dying. So that looks like it could have some kind of impact. But still, then you're looking at issue 52, not 50. Right. So I don't know. It's a different world.
Yeah, we're getting too old for this shit, Brandon.
Right? It's crazy. Like, Laura works with a guy who he was talking about how big of a comic book fan he is, and I was like, "Oh, so you collect?" He's like, "Oh, no, I just torrent everything."
Oh my god!
And I was just like, "Oh, you don't buy anything?" He's like, "No." And the ironic part is the guy wants to become a comic creator.
What?
Yeah, I'm like, bro, do you not understand the struggle that goes along with putting in your hard work and having to sell this to make money to continue to do it? Like. And you're out there literally not buying a single book. Like,
that is wild.
Okay, bro, I don't think you get this.
There's such a weird split to that mentality. Oh man, that's crazy. But one thing that I would think will be really interesting to see play out is like with Rebirth, 2 of the books are going back to original numbering. Like, it'll be interesting to see what they do when they get to like 1,000. Like, will they actually try to do something big?
I think they will. I think they'll go ham.
They gotta, right?
It's got to be crazy. You're going to have like a 1 in 1 million variant cover if your store orders like 6,000 copies. Like, there'll be something ridiculous.
Henry Cavill will actually like give like a toenail to like emboss onto the...
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I was about ready to say it's going to have like a literal skin cell from Geoff Johns and a poly bag on it.
Oh god! Apparently, we just come up with really disgusting variants. So maybe it's a good thing we don't run DC.
One of the two. You take your pick.
Yeah, like Geoff Johns is listening. He's like, I'd give up a skin cell if we could sell 10,000 more copies.
Yep. He's like, that's happening.
Yeah, I'm going to sign that shit. It better be a big skin cell. I'm like, that'd be probably multiple skin cells, Geoff. Anyways, all right. So let's transition to another topic I want to talk about. We actually had several requests from people for us to talk about Civil War, Captain America: Civil War, the new movie. We were just talking about Civil War, the comic. Let's briefly talk about Captain America: Civil War. I mean, that was terrible, right?
It was awful.
Oh, God, it was so bad. No, it was fucking rad.
Yeah, it was so super badass. It was it was easily in my top 2 Marvel movies of all time.
Top 2? Okay, so what's the other one? Winter Soldier?
Probably, honestly, it would probably be the first Avengers. I was talking with a guy at work about this. Like, it's got such a nostalgic feel in that, this being the first Avengers, that like went to go see it, you watch it, and they didn't fuck it up. Right. And even though it's like maybe not the best quality wise as some of these others, like I think Civil War was better quality wise, personally, in my opinion.
Oh, you mean the first Avengers is not maybe the best quality wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks a little dated. It's not. You could see it's like them figuring it out, but at the time, like, because you look at Civil War now, and it's like clockwork. Like they've
Right.
got it so down. But if you watch that first Avengers, like if you went in there before you saw any of those other ones, this is the first one you've seen like this. It was just so amazing to watch because they did it, and it was awesome. And and it just that sheer feel of it, I think, will override a lot of different things. But I would probably put Winter Soldier at number 3 because that movie was bomb.
Yeah, Civil War or Winter Soldier is my favorite still. But the thing that I find so amazing about Civil War is how well, like, you could you could watch all 13 or however many Marvel movies there are, and like Civil War would pay off really well. But if you just watch the 3 Captain America movies, it would be like the arc of Captain America and the arc of Bucky has been done so well, and it's pretty wild to think that like so much of it is taken from the Brubaker stuff.
Yeah, I love it. Let's get Captain Puerto Rico out there. Stat.
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen because they're going to have to kill Captain America for it first. By the way, Captain Puerto Rico for Brandon is when Bucky took over as Captain America for a while.
Yeah, if you look at it, that's the Puerto Rican flag. It 100% is.
But anyways, but like I love obviously there was just so many great parts to it. But like I was really blown away by Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
Dude, he was awesome. Everybody keeps talking about him. Black Panther for me was the go-to. Like, holy shit, this guy is so badass.
Well, Ant-Man was technically my favorite part. I loved Ant-Man, and
my kids too, but mostly just because he cursed.
But when he went giant size, I was just like basically turned to Amber like before it was happening. I was like, he's gonna get big. He's gonna get big. And she was like, what? I'm like, he's gonna get big. And she's like, why are you saying this? Yeah. And then he got big, and I was like, oh my God. It was amazing. But Black Panther was amazing. Like, God, like the way that they captured like kind of his regal nature combined with like his suit? Yeah, his suit was amazing. And just like I don't know, like the sheer like capability and like give no shitsness of the character. Cause like that was the one thing that I always loved about Black Panther was like he didn't play the same game as everybody else. Like he's never like it doesn't matter like what on those events or like in the Hickman Illuminati stuff and everything. He was just kind of playing his own game. Mm-hmm. And like he was totally doing that in Civil War, and it was they handled the character so well.
Yeah, I always thought of Black Panther as like the Marvel equivalent of Batman. Like he's just this guy, like he'll play with the team, but he'll also come up ways to take you down. He could hold his own against all of you guys. Like, and he's just, I don't know, just really smart guy. Mm-hmm. And just the style of fighting and stuff too, being more hand to hand, just normal guy, which they kind of take away, I guess, because his suit's a little enhanced, and he does have like the Panther God powers, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, like when he jumps to save his dad, I was like, damn, that's one hell of a leap. He should be in like, the fucking NBA or something. That's a hell of a vertical.
To be a gold medalist.
Yeah. But so I know that this character has been kind of polarizing, but I really love Zemo. I thought like they're not going to like give him like a pink like sweater uniform with like fur all over it. And like,
but he should have got a purple base cap thing.
Yeah, well, maybe. But anyways, but I love the fact that like he was a villain who like realized that he wasn't going to out physical anybody, and he was just going to be able to like that line that he says where he's like God, what did he say? Like if you attack like an empire from the outside, it won't crumble, but if you the damage comes from within or whatever, like that's when everything falls apart. I was like, that was like a really prescient move. It was just like, it was interesting to see how he was like playing all the characters off each other in that moment. Like, did you see the Bucky twist at the end with the Stark parents like coming before it happened?
Not really, actually.
I didn't either. Like, that was genuinely surprising. I was very surprised by that. And I don't know. I just loved how everything built so well organically together. It was just, it's amazing. Like you were talking about how with Avengers, like it was crazy seeing all this stuff happen like together for the first time. Like you knew that like this was something momentous. But like this is kind of like, it's like when they first realized with the Avengers that they could do this, this is like the natural development of like, now we can do it. Let's do something amazing with it.
Right, because I feel like they're at a point now where it's like, okay, we've done it. It's successful. Let's just go nuts. Let's do whatever the fuck we want. And like, I think with the first Avengers movie too, like it's not really like a mainstay Avengers villain they're fighting. Then in this movie,
well,
you
Loki
basically
was the first villain.
Sorry. Yeah, I was thinking like Chitauri though, but yeah.
Loki, Chitauri is bullshit.
Loki 100% though. But with this movie, it was like you had almost like a modernized version of like the classic Zemo and the Cosmic Cube stuff. You know what I mean? Like it was cool. I do wish he would have had the stocking mask, just like I think in that Iron Man movie, the AIM should have had the beekeeper suits, but I will never let that go. But
I remember how mad you were about that.
I was so mad. Like you easily could have done it. Like it could have been a protection against radiation or something. Like you could have explained it and thrown it in there. Just like I think you could have had him wear a mask. But whatever. Maybe they'll do something at some point with him again. But I don't know. I'm so excited. Like I really can't wait for Doctor Strange. That movie looks awesome. I love that it's basically like Inception in the Marvel universe.
I know, right? Yeah, it's really cool. The visuals look amazing for it. I think it's really interesting. Like you know the director they got for it, right?
I can't remember his name.
Scott Derrickson. He's a horror movie director.
What did he do again?
Shit. I'm gonna look it up really quick. I think he did like Conjuring or like something like that. I don't know. Like he's one of those new wave like horror directors that like people are super into because he's like actually like got like serious visual style. But let's see. He did Sinister. And
see, I've never seen Sinister.
Okay, he did Sinister, and he did Sinister 2, and he did Deliver Us from Evil, and he did The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
That was pretty cool.
And he also did The Day the Earth Stood Still, the Keanu Reeves movie. But anyways, like people like are really into like his like visuals and stuff. And so like seeing that trailer, you're just like, shit, that's gonna be a thing.
It looks awesome. And then, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy. The crazy thing is, though, like, you have these great movies coming up, but you don't have the continuation of, like, what we just saw for a while.
Right. Like Avengers of Infinity War or whatever the hell they're going to end up calling it.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm sure there'll be a little bit of, you know, a ripple in the Spider-Man movie, but they're not going to focus on any of that.
Well, when's Black Panther coming?
I don't think, like, 2018 or something?
Isn't that when the first part of whatever Avengers 3 will
they
be?
come around the same time.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that all pays off because like that's one thing I thought was interesting about the ending of this one is like you definitely have two factions, but it's like I don't really know where they go from here. But I guess that's why I don't run the Marvel universe.
That's all I'm hoping is like next movie they'll bring in the Sentry and start the new Avengers.
Fuck the Sentry. You know what's crazy though? Like now I'm curious if you're on board with this with me, but one of the things that I think is really interesting about the Marvel movies is they always get me so jacked about comics. And whenever I finish watching one of those movies, like afterwards, I went back and I read Avengers Disassembled. I read like the first arc of New Avengers, the Bendis and David Finch one. I actually forgot it was David Finch. And then I also read House of M. And I was just like, I was just so like locked in the Marvel zone afterwards. And
Marvel comics were so good around that time, though. Like they were so good.
Did you? But is that something you kind of like do after the movies too? Do you get super amped up for the comics?
Oh yeah, big time. Like I reread Civil War, which is, on a side note, the worst collected hardcover ever. But anyway.
Wait, in what sense? Like the fact that the comic's not good, or because like the
comic is amazing. Like it's cool having it in hardback because the pages are kind of a larger size and they're super clear and they're nice. But with that collection, it looks huge, right?
Right.
But when you really get into it, like 3/4 of that thing are like scripts and backup pages. It's like when they did those like toward the end of the really crappy anniversary issues where they would put it out and there'd be like a backup story and then some script pages and stuff in the back and you paid like $8 for it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this thing is. It's the hardcover version of that.
So I have to tell you a quick story that has absolutely nothing to do with Civil War or anything like that. But so Amber, actually, my wife Amber, just started when we were down at Emerald City Comic-Con, she saw the Lady Thor in like a Funko Pop toy. They had like a special edition one that they were having there. And she was like, "What is this?" And she like asked me about it, and then she read her first comic. I got her the first trade for Aaron and Russell Dowderman's like Thor with Jane Foster Thor, and she was like totally into it. And I got her the second volume, and she's like, "It's only 3 issues." I'm like, "There's no way it's just 3 issues. That's crazy." So she was reading the trade, and she was like, "I don't understand why it took such a crazy like like style turn there at the end, and it was like they included that Thor annual that had like the CM Punk and Rob Guillory story.
Oh
and,
yeah.
and then, which is fine, that has like, you know, her in it and everything, but then they included like this random reprint from like the 60s where Jane Foster became Thor, and she was like, I didn't like that, it had nothing to do with anything, why did they include that? And I was like, oh man, that comic was from the 60s. She's like, it was really confusing. I'm like, that was it seems like that is like a really like lame move by Marvel to include something like that.
Yeah, it's really silly.
Especially for somebody like that might be a new reader who's interested in the character. Like that stuff is super jarring and turns them off.
Right. Put that kind of stuff in like a collected edition aimed at people like yourself and I, not new people. That makes no sense.
Shit, I don't even want to read that.
Yeah. Yeah, not really.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. So general thumbs up to Civil War.
Oh, super thumbs up. Big old chub.
Yeah, big time. I'm really stoked for everything that's come out of it. Like I'm totally in for, you know, the Amazing Spider-Man Homecoming, totally in for Black Panther the movie, and totally in for Ant-Man and Wasp whenever it actually comes out. I have no idea when that's coming out.
All I know is the cast of that Black Panther movie, if that all becomes accurate, is going to be friggin' phenomenal.
Well, apparently John Boyega straight up like said he's not doing it.
Even him left out. Like,
yeah. Well, Michael B. Jordan for sure signed up. Did you see Creed?
No, I haven't seen Creed yet.
Creed is so dope, and it's made by Ryan Coogler, the guy who is directing Black Panther, and it's got Michael B. Jordan in it. And I'm like, oh man, that is a hell of a pairing. That's gonna be really good. Anyways, next topic, kind of on the flip side, is Geoff Johns has been promoted, kind of. I mean, he's just like, they're, I guess, listening to him more. He's one of the new two, like, kind of lead guys doing DC Entertainment's film universe. He's already like the main guy at like one of the main guys at the TV side. I'm curious, does that make you more? I mean, I know that you ended up being more on the positive side on Batman versus Superman than you originally were, but does that make you more positive about the future of DC films having somebody like Geoff Johns at the front?
For me, it does. I mean, the guy's got a movie background. I mean,
yeah, he was Richard Donner's like assistant, right?
Yeah, so I mean, he has a little working knowledge. He also worked on the TV side of things for a while there, like when Smallville was reaching its end and whatnot.
Well, and he's still doing stuff. I mean, he's like, he's their, what is it, chief creative officer, and one of his main things is like building up the TV universe.
Right, and I think the TV universe is killer. So, I mean, I feel like it's a good thing. You know, how much impact he'll end up having, I think will depend on how much he can throw down with Snyder. But I hope he is given more control, honestly, because like I was reading what he was saying. He was just saying like he wants to see more hope in the universe, and I think the Batman tone was great, but like, and I didn't think Superman was terrible, but I do think you have to go lighter with him, otherwise you're missing the point of Superman. And Wonder Woman looks like it's going to be awesome, but I worry like all these little, because Aquaman I think can be really good. I think Flash could be good, but when you bring them all back together, what is that movie going to look like? You know, right. I mean, all these individual movies can be awesome, but if you gather them all together and it's like this last one, while I didn't hate it as much as the first time I saw it, it's still not a great movie. Right. And when you put everybody together, if you can't hit a home run like the Avengers, you're screwed. I mean, that'll ripple back to all those individual movies, and you're going to look at a potential dead franchise. Like, they need to take this very serious.
Right. Well, and that's why it's like, I think it's good having Geoff Johns in there, is because like, if anything, like that hope and everything is definitely lacking from Superman as a character. I mean, I was watching the Iron Giant earlier, and
such a good movie,
such a great movie. But I mean, like, what if Iron Giant was inspired, like, because, you know, he's like all inspired by Superman and being like a hero and everything. What if he was inspired by Batman versus Superman, like Superman? Like, would he just like mow everyone down with his guns and then fall on top and crush Hogarth to death? Like, yes. I mean, like, it's just kind of interesting because it's so dark and everything, and it's like I just find it fascinating that like that was not something that they were actively working into the character, because it's like it's whether or not you think Batman versus Superman is good is one thing, but the fact of the matter is like there's no one really to root for in those movies, and it's really weird watching like a hero movie and not have any like actively obvious heroes that are trying to do something really good, you know, short of like, you know, fighting Doomsday or like saving a Martha. But anyways, I don't know. I found that to be really strange, but I'm hopeful Geoff Johns will be good. The only thing that I thought was really weird about the announcement was like it also came in an article where they were basically like, yeah, the third act for Suicide Squad is garbage, and they have to like completely redo it. And I'm just like, that movie's coming out in August.
Right. I saw something about that too, and that's the first thing I thought too. Is like, how much reworking can you really do to have it like finished and out?
Yeah. I mean, it is pretty wild to think that they kind of have to retool the entire third act. I mean, I guess they didn't say specifically how much, but it's a little uninspiring that is kind of where they're at right now.
Well, and then what I had read too was like, because I honestly think the trailers look really good. But from what I understand, like those are literally the best parts of the movie.
Well, a lot of times that is. Okay, backtrack really quick. That was one of the craziest things about Civil War was the fact that like all the best parts weren't in the trailer.
Yeah, they were secret because secrets are awesome when they come to fruition.
Secrets are awesome. All right, so I have a quick question for you related to the fact we just talked about Civil War movies and and the DC movies and everything. So during the whole Batman versus Superman thing and like I don't know, now Civil War is out and everything. One thing that became really randomly clear to me is like, when we were kids and like people would joke around like, they had like the DC versus Marvel like amalgam event and everything like that, but it wasn't really like DC versus Marvel. It was just kind of like this fun thing that kind of united comic fans. Like it seems like the movie fandom is like legit insane about that shit. Like they yell at each other all the time and like they're always like raging and they have like these staunch alliances and stuff. Do you think it's a little crazy to like align purely on one side or the other? Like, is that something you've ever seen?
As far as the movies?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it doesn't. Yeah, basically, as far as the movies, but I guess in the comics too. Like, could you ever see yourself just being like, "No, I'm just pure DC from now on. Fuck all y'all. If you like Marvel, you're an asshole."
No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it at all with the movies. I mean, I've seen it with the comics, but I never fell into those camps. Like, I always liked Batman and I always liked X-Men, and they're two separate things, so I'm just gonna have to live with that type deal.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not as much on the publisher as much as I am the character. So like, if X-Men were to move to DC, I wouldn't lose my shit. It would be really fucking weird, but I would still read X-Men. There's nothing that's gonna get me to shake that, but I mean, I guess I could understand it to a degree. Like, if that's your thing, like I'm like that with like Yankees, Red Sox. I fucking hate the Yankees. If you're a Yankee fan, you're an idiot. But
right.
So I can understand the mentality, just not in the realm of comics, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too because I was thinking about the same prism. I was like, I'm a diehard Mariners fan, Pacers fan, Patriots fan, and everything like that. And if like somebody's like, oh yeah, I'm a huge Broncos fan, I'm like, well, you're a dick.
Right.
Or
you must suck at life.
Yeah, or like same thing with the Yankees. If you're like, who my favorite Yankee is? Paul O'Neill. And I'm like, I'm going to walk away from you so I don't punch you.
Right.
But, like I could see that. But it's interesting how in my mind it makes absolutely no sense for DC versus Marvel thing, because like in my mind it's like that's basically saying that I don't want two potentially good things in my life versus like the Yankees are like, like if you're rooting for, well, God, it's weird. Like I can like justify
it
myself. It
feels like it should fit, but it doesn't. Like, I mean, if you think of it like in sports, yeah. But then if you think of it the other direction, you go, okay, so you're an avid book reader.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not reading anything from this publisher, but I'm going to read stuff from this publisher because everything's good here and everything there sucks.
Yeah.
Like, that makes no sense. And so comics is like a weird in-between zone anymore. But for me, I don't get it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I find it to be very strange. Like I remember posting something about like Batman versus Superman after it came out, and I was just making a joke or something like that, and I had like all these people in my comments or like just like sending tweets back to me being like, like Batman versus Superman's amazing. You're a dickhole. I'm just like, what? Why? Like, is your dad Zack Snyder? I don't understand. Why are you so into this? I'm like,
I am Zack Snyder.
Oh my God. Zack Snyder is just like the king of all those. Like, he just creating all these fake accounts to like complain to people about like not liking his movie.
Yes.
That would be one hell of a twist. I actually think I would like Batman versus Superman more if that happened.
I would too. If that was happening, all while you got to just watch like a montage of Ben Affleck looking disappointed. I felt so genuinely bad for him.
Oh God, yeah. She's just probably like, fucking shit's Geely all over again.
Well, I liked it. Like I was reading an article and they were saying like he literally put a bunch of stock into this and didn't really agree necessarily with Snyder's direction, but had to go with it.
Right.
And that's why they've given him some power and like clearly they're knocking Snyder down a couple pegs because Affleck's got power over that, then Johns got power over this. Like, they're chipping away at Snyder without officially saying, "Bro, we've lost confidence."
I gotta say, like, I have a lot of hope for an Affleck like directed and starring in Batman movie.
I do too. Like, the guy is a solid like performer. Like,
He's an amazing director. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw like Gone Baby Gone or The Town.
It was awesome.
Yeah, and Argo was obviously great because it won a freaking Oscar. But I mean, like, all those movies are great, and he has a great sensibility, and I can see him actually doing that gritty Batman really well.
Yeah, and I, honestly, with any problems I had with Batman vs Superman, they didn't really stem from him and his Batman character. I mean, the storytelling maybe, but like how he played the character, I liked the suit, stuff like that.
It's not his fault he had some dumb lines to save.
Yeah, he didn't get to write this one. So now coming with the next one, though, if that Batman movie sucks, then he's just screwed. But
back to Geely 2 for him.
Yeah, because it sounds like he's writing, producing, directing, setting up costumes. Like, he's all hands on this one.
Yeah, he's gonna have to be teaching everyone how to do like those crazy rope, like with tire exercises he was doing in the movie. He's gonna be the physical trainer for I don't know, whoever's in that. I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting. Okay, so
I want to see them bring in the Riddler for the next movie and have it be Conor McGregor.
Oh, what? Like the UFC fighter?
Yeah.
Why?
Be amazing.
But that doesn't even make sense.
Yep, but it would be amazing. I was thinking about that the other night. I was like, that would be cool.
Oh my god,
it would probably be terrible, but that would be cool.
I still don't understand why you would have Conor McGregor play like the least physical character in Batman's rogues gallery.
They could make him an ass kicker. It'd be sweet.
He's just like, I'm gonna beat you to death with this cane. You're like, that's not what you do. You tell stupid riddles. He's like, riddle this, bitch.
He wouldn't even tell riddles either. He would just talk shit. He would just talk shit, and they'd be like, "Dude, you don't even tell riddles." And he's like, "Riddle me this, God!" And he'd punch somebody or something.
Oh my god! I kind of want to see this just so you can see your vision come to life.
I would like it to be like a Funny or Die. I think that would be great.
That would be pretty good.
The other thing with Johns coming on board, this is the thing I'm most excited about, and it has nothing to do with anything that's come so far. But the fact that we are definitely probably going to get a Booster Gold movie if Geoff Johns starts. Like, without a doubt, it's going to happen. And I really hope that they do it with him and Ted Kord and do the blue and gold. And you know who I would put on creative? Phil Lord and Christopher Miller.
Oh, yeah, that'd be amazing.
That would be
so good.
That could easily be like DC's Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, you have a fun, loose adventure.
That is actually a tremendously great idea. As soon as you said, like, do you know who I'd want on there? I was like, I think he's going to say Phil Lord and Christopher Miller.
It would be amazing. Like, a buddy comedy with those guys doing that in superhero stuff. Like, it would just be ridiculous.
I'm just hoping they don't relegate them to Legends of Tomorrow.
Well, of course, supposedly they're doing a straight up movie because they were going to do a Booster Gold TV show.
Yeah.
Now, supposedly that's not happening because they're legit doing a movie, is the article I read.
I honestly think Booster Gold would be one of their best possible heroes for a movie. He is so, like, inherently, by nature, he is, like, the most, like, movie star-like hero DC has.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a cooler Wonder Man.
Yeah, for sure. I hate Wonder Man, though.
I hate Wonder Man. Wonder Man sucks.
This stupid pantsuit.
It's not even like a pantsuit. It's like a, I don't even know what you'd call it, like a jumpsuit.
Yeah, what the hell is that thing?
It's really weird. It's like something like a stunt driver would wear.
Yeah, he's like a member of Slipknot or something.
Okay, huge shift. Before we get into like the final stuff, I want to talk about Darwin Cook. We were talking about how Geoff Johns is all about like bringing the hope back to DC Universe, and in my opinion, I think very few people did that better than Darwin Cook. And Darwin Cook just passed away a week and a half ago. Brandon, you and I were both huge fans of Darwin Cook. You love New Frontier. I love New Frontier. I was all about the Parker series. Obviously, he did some like X-Statix X-Force stuff with like Wolverine dupe and everything.
Yeah.
There's obviously only so much you can really say like about somebody's like death and everything like that. But I thought you actually made a really good point on Facebook. I don't go on Facebook very often, but I saw you say like, for comic fans, this is kind of like Prince or David Bowie dying. Like this is like
100%.
This is
huge.
It's one of those legends. So like. Really quick, like, what was it about Darwin Cook's work that like meant so much to you as a comic fan?
I just like, for me, I didn't grow up in the era that his art style kind of matched, but the art style and that time frame was so filled with hope, and like superheroes is this like amazingly clean type of characters.
They're like aspirational.
Yeah, they're like something you could look up to. And like when I was a kid, like that's that feeling you get from comics, like these larger than life, like holy crap, can do no wrong type characters. And his art really harkened back to a time where that was exactly how they were. Like, we still grew up on anti-heroes and stuff, but that was legit the golden age. And the art style was just so clean. And like, you know, I honestly, I mean, it's not the same, but I think you have guys like Doc Shaner and stuff like that because you had a guy like that, where that art style was more popularized again. And he did such a wide variety of stuff with his style without really altering it all that much. It was phenomenal stuff. And like DC, you know, New Frontier was amazing. And then I also, like, I didn't even know he was dying. Did you know that?
No, it came out like the morning he died. Like, it came out that morning that he was like in palliative care for cancer treatment. And it was just like, I mean, like, it didn't have any big to do behind it. And it was like, it was crazy to go from like finding out he was sick to finding out he was like, you know, he'd passed away within like 16 hours.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first saw that, like, you know, people were saying that he'd passed away. I was like, I didn't want to believe it, because it kind of felt like one of those, like, you know, like where they just randomly come out with like Morgan Freeman died like 50 million times, like one of those hoax things. You're like, until I see something official from the family, I don't want to say anything. And then I saw it and I was just like, God, that was crazy. It's like he just, like, Twilight Children just finished in like, what, December or something like that, or January, and it's like the hardcover just came out, and it's crazy to think that he went from drawing a monthly comic to, you know, passing away that quickly. It was just such a shock.
Well, and they just did the whole DC Darwin Cook month where he did all the covers.
Well, I think that was like 2014 or something.
Was it? I thought that was this last
I think it was like November 2014. I could be wrong though. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't long ago. I mean, but that's the thing. Like, I think, you know, going back to what you were saying about like Doc Shaner, I think having somebody like Darwin Cook in comics in that specific time when everything was really, really heavily going towards like the grim and gritty, and everyone's like, I mean, that was like when that came out, that was like right around the time of like Identity Crisis, and like where like everyone's like mind wiping everyone, and like, you know, Civil
raping
War
and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was like horrible. And then you have New Frontier, and I kind of feel like, you know, while it hasn't, like, a lot of those people were of the age where they were just getting into the industry, I think, you know, it something like the New Frontier like would show somebody like Doc Shaner, or like, I don't know, like there's a lot of like fun books like Ryan North and Erica Henderson's Squirrel Girl and stuff like that. It kind of shows the people that like comic fans react positively to stories that actually have some hope and positivity to them. And I think that if, like, even beyond the fact that it was a great comic, I think it was an important comic in the sense that it was like going back to those aspirational days, as you were talking about.
Yeah, because especially, like you said, at that time, like, things were pretty dark. And to throw that out there, it was like the opposite of like when Dark Knight came out.
Right.
Where everything was kind of lighter and then it went dark.
Right.
Everything was really dark, and then this came out and it was really light. And it was just so jarring in contrast to everything else at the time. I just can't say enough good stuff. Like the Parker stuff, I read a few of those that you had let me borrow, and I really enjoyed those. And it's just really sad to have somebody who's got that kind of talent just poof, be gone one day.
I know, yeah. I mean, and that was the same thing with Bowie, and same with like Prince. I mean, it was just like so sudden, and it was just like you said, poof, they're gone and everything. But I don't know. I mean, I read all of the Parker series that weekend, and I like reread the New Frontier and everything, and it's just like, that's one of the nice things about it, is like you can always like look back through their work and everything. And like, and he's got the amazing thing is he didn't actually get into comics until like 2000.
See, I didn't realize that. Wow.
Well, yeah, because he tried to get into comics in like the 80s and it didn't work out, and then he got into animation. He was actually part of the Batman the Animated Series team.
Oh, see, I believe that. That's, again, further proving the dude was a genius.
Yeah, so he was part of that team, and he was actually like, I guess like I think he was like the director of like the Batman Beyond series.
Oh, and that was a great series too.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. I mean, so he like had a whole career before getting into comics, and he just loved comics, so he got back into it. But I don't know. I mean, it's a very sad thing, and I don't know. I figured we should pay our respects to the great cartoonist that was Darwin Cook.
Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, like you said, he's got such a great body of work. There's no way he's going to be forgotten.
For sure. So next topic, I want to ask you about, there's obviously some huge things coming in comics this summer. You got DC's Rebirth is starting next week. We got Civil War 2 started this past week. How are you feeling about the next wave of comics?
Dude, I am so jacked.
For Rebirth or for Civil War or for all of it?
For the whole storm. It's like a perfect storm. Like, I honestly, like, DC is really on a bad streak. They know it. We know it. Everyone knows it. Rebirth, like you had to do something.
Right.
And I feel like they have to make a drastic change back to what everybody liked a little bit more, because it just got too far out and people didn't like it. And clearly that's evident.
I think it's really hilarious that like the suggestion that you just made is like radical, and that they should make the comics that people liked again.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's crazy that you have to say something like that, but it's the God's honest truth. Like,
Yeah,
it's so
totally.
it's crazy. And then Marvel, like, I'm enjoying a lot of what Marvel's doing right now. Like, I honestly, this is the most I've enjoyed the X-Men books in a while.
I'm not reading any of them. I gotta get on it.
See, like, so don't get me wrong. Like, these aren't like Grant Morrison, like, holy crap, best ever. But this is more like the X-Men that I like grand adventures, less infighting. Actually, no infighting at the moment. And so you have more of unified teams than like Old Man Logan is dope as hell. I love that book. And then you got books like Doctor Strange and all that stuff. And I feel like the books, instead of having I don't feel like they're going to need to do like all new Marvel anytime soon. I think they could ride with what they have, and because they have something good, they're able to do a big event like this across the line finally, that isn't to restructure the whole universe or jump ahead 9 months or anything like that. And so I'm happy that we have a stable universe that we can play with stuff like this in, and then for DC to be getting back to where they should be. I'm crazy excited. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I'm taking this next Wednesday off from work to go pick up Rebirth. Because I will not have it spoiled for me.
That is legit. That is super legit.
I'm legit excited. Like, I haven't been this excited forever, but I'm constantly, like, I was talking to you, like, last year wasn't a great year for comics for me. So I'm constantly looking for those comics that are just going to reignite it. Because whether comics are good, bad, or terrible, like, I'm always going to read. But it's just so much better when they're good. And so, like, I'm always waiting for those books that are just really going to blow up and reignite everything and make it great.
Yeah, no, I'm totally feeling you on the same way. Like, this is by far the most excited about DC I've been in forever. The fact that like they actually like the kicking it off with an 80-page giant is such like a perfect DC move to do, that it's actually surprising that DC's doing it
for $2.99.
Yeah, for $2.99, and then beyond that, like a lot of the books look great. Like I'm very interested in trying out a lot of them. They're not, thankfully, releasing all of them at the same time, which is really great. And I'm super jacked for it. Marvel, I've been enjoying the books at Marvel that I enjoy, but I didn't pick up Civil War Zero this past week. It's like $5.99. I hate to be cheap, but like I feel like I could just wait for trade on that one.
Or Marvel Unlimited. Honestly, I did buy it just because I am so jacked for it. Because Civil War is my favorite Marvel event of all time.
Yeah.
I love it. So if you're going to just throw it out there with a number 2 on it, I'm probably going to check it out. It could have probably had like Scott LaBelle and I don't know who you'd put on art. Somebody from Youngblood. But and I probably would at least check it out. But the Zero issue was good, but it really just kind of laid the foundation for the concepts they're going to play on. Like the original Civil War was terrorism and stuff, and this one is more like the ideas of like Minority Report, almost like trying to prejudge people before
stuff.
Yeah. So like a lot of what Trump says.
or kind of like the premise for Winter Soldier when they had like the Insight program.
Yeah, and so I think that I liked the Zero issue because I really wasn't sure what themes they were going to play with, and I felt like you had to make sure that it had a pretty good real world theme to it to make it work like the original Civil War. And I felt like they laid the theme down enough that I'm like, okay, yeah, this is very modern and very like hot topic. So pull it off and it'll be great. And the art was great, and I love Bendis, so
yeah. Maybe I'll go back and pick it up because like I actually did enjoy the Free Comic Book Day comic. I thought that was good, and it introduced that Inhumans guy. I think it's really hilarious just how much like Marvel tries to jam in Inhumans whenever they can. They're like, all right, this new event's happening. How are we going to work an Inhuman? And they're like, how about if this guy is precog and he can see shit happening before it happens? Like, nailed it, perfect. Let's work him in.
Yeah,
they love working in their Inhumans. But I don't know. I mean, like I wasn't certain about it, and I don't know. With your stamp of approval, maybe I'll go back and pick it up. But it's funny because like one of the cool things one of the things I really like about Marvel right now is like you talked about all the books that you're really enjoying, and all the books that I'm really enjoying are like completely different. But it's cool that they exist in the same world.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm obviously super into Doctor Strange too, because Doctor Strange is dope. But but then you also have like, I really like Mighty Thor. I really like Squirrel Girl. I really like Hellcat, and just like all these other random books, and like Power Man and Iron Fist and stuff.
I love that book.
Yeah, it's great. I haven't read the new issue yet, so say nothing.
I haven't read that one yet either, actually. It's on my nightstand.
But I like it really seems like Marvel has like a little something for everybody right now, and I like that. But that's why I'm a little concerned about Civil War 2, is just because like I wonder if they're kind of in like a weirdly precarious position to like jam like tie-ins in everywhere. Because that's always my concern for tie-ins in general, is just like they disrupt flow so badly.
Yeah, that's my only thing too, is I know, like, okay, so Civil War time, like Infinite Crisis, all that, there was just like, you would put those things on the front, and then you would have like an OMAC fly across, like in that Nightwing book, and that was tie-in. And I am a little concerned about that too, because I know I was looking at solicitations for whatever month they just put out. I think it's, what are we on, August at this point, or July? Mm-hmm. And so it seemed like every fucking book tied into it.
Right.
And then I'm reading, like, I lately I just look at the images and I don't read the synopsis, because I'm trying to like get back to not knowing mostly what I'm reading before I read it.
I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, and like I'm pretty much staying away from comic book news for the most part. I'll look in on like movies and stuff, but if it's about like a specific comic, I won't read it. But I decided I just wanted to read the synopsis just to see, because I had that feeling too. And I'm reading through it, and I'm like, I don't see how that ties in at all.
Yeah. Like in like a OMAC flying by sort of way, or in like a it seems forced sort of way?
Well, like I'm reading the solicitations for Marvel for the month that they just put out.
Right.
And they show the covers and it says Civil War 2, da-da-da-da. And then you read the synopsis for the issue, and it like doesn't even mention Civil War or any of the conflict, but it'll say Civil War tie-in.
Right.
And you're like, and I'm confused, because I'm like, did you guys just do a bad job of describing this? Or is this a good thing, because you guys, it is going to tie in, but it's not really going to need to alter anything, so you really could legitimately just pick it up if you want? Or are you guys just gouging? Like, and I don't think the industry needs gouging right now. Like, they really don't. We need to boil back, because the gouging is what's putting us in a situation where kids aren't getting in. Kids can't afford a $5.99 comic. Like,
right, exactly.
I remember scrounging up $1.25.
Right.
Like, and that was difficult sometimes. So I don't know.
I think that the jamming the books into like forcing a connection when there isn't necessarily one is like unhealthy, especially like, again, like, I was talking about Amber. It's like, what if she decided that she wanted to pick up single issues of Thor, and all of a sudden they go from like dealing with Malekith to like she has to choose if she wants to be on Team Iron Man or Team Captain Marvel. And like she'd be like, what the shit was this? I thought we were dealing with like, I don't know, like dark elves or something. And and Roxxon Corporation, and all of a sudden we got like some crazy. I have to tell you, can I just tell you that it was amazingly awesome for actually getting the question from my wife of who is the Watcher?
Nice. Well, he's Nick Fury now, but
I actually, wasn't he Bucky for a while? No. He was Nick Fury.
No, he was the man on the wall or whatever.
Yeah, he was the man on the wall. Yeah. So, anyways, getting that question, I was like, well, there's actually a lot of Watchers, but the one you're dealing with is Uatu.
She's like, what?
She's like, what is an Uatu? And I'm just like, I'm glad you asked. And then I brought out a chart.
Yes.
Okay, so you talked about news sites. I want to ask you, neither of us have looked at it, but DC Universe Rebirth has like leaked, I guess, like crazy. It started with Reddit, and then it started going on news sites like Bleeding Cool, Comic Book Resources, Newsarama, et cetera, et cetera. And then not only that, but apparently I don't know the details, because I don't read other news sites. But apparently like DC like leaned into it, and they're just like, yeah, this is what happens. I'm just like, it's crazy. But,
did they really?
I guess. I don't know. I don't want to go to sites to find out, but from what I understand, that is kind of what happened. So on a scale of super whack to I'm okay with it, what are you?
I'm like in the super whack zone for sure. Like, so Bleeding Cool, yeah, whatever. We expect that kind of shit. Comic book resources, like, wow, guys, like, that's awful. That would be the equivalent. And again, this is keeping in mind this isn't even out yet. Like, I already have enough problems with like when they reveal stuff the day it comes out or the night before.
This
but
is
like
5 days beforehand.
Yeah, we're 5 days beforehand. And, say what you will about comic news websites, whether or not they do real journalism or not. this is the way I compare this situation, for me at least, to Laura, my wife, is this would be like, you've got the new X-Men movie coming out, and Entertainment Weekly tells you everything about it before it comes out.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is.
And, Entertainment Weekly isn't like a real, journalistic go home, like going to change the world, but it does journalism of these movies. And so it's the same thing for the comics. Like, why would you spoil that? Why would you go with that? Like, if I was DC, I would be tearing them up right now.
Yeah.
Not leaning into it. I mean, that's such a huge reversal from, like, Geoff Johns when he was announcing all this stuff. I mean, like, just stay away from your computer for those 2 weeks. Don't have it spoiled. Like, he hyped me up so hard on that. Like, it was ridiculous, by the way, but he's got me so hyped on that. Like, don't look at anything. Like, that last page is going to blow your mind. And I was like, I can't wait for my mind to be blown.
And now they're like, we're going to post it on Comic Book Resources.
Yeah. And then I looked on Bleeding Cool because I was trying to look up information on the next season of Legends of Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to see if, like, what cast members were or were not actually coming back next year. And so I go to look, and I saw that on that left-hand column, and it's like Rebirth spoils. And I was like, X! I just closed my window screen. And I was like, no. I was like, no more. And then I went over to CBR because they had first looks at the new Teen Titans, John Boy Myers designs, which are incredible. Mm-hmm. And I saw they had that there, and I was like, X. I was like, I just can't go online anymore. And I can't trust Yahoo because sometimes when I go there, they have stuff like that. So I'm just, ESPN is it.
Right. Well, you know what that's the funny thing is like when what was it, when it was Batman versus Superman, I was actually legit afraid to go on like Batman versus or on ESPN because I was like, what if they have an ad that like somehow like spoils something? And I'm just like,
or somebody in the comment section.
Yeah, you never know. But I mean, my thing about it is just like I understand why Reddit would post that. I understand why Bleeding Cool would post that, but to me, it makes you look so disreputable if you want to be like a real news site, and it just makes you look like a callous chaser of traffic. It just makes you look like you're. I mean, and granted, these are businesses. Comic Book Resources was just bought not that long ago by somebody else, so it's not run by the guy who started it. So like they probably want to make money, which means they want more traffic, which means they want more people to click on their ads, which means they want more traffic. So they do what they can to draw that in. But I mean, this is not a new thing for them. Like for me, like I went on there and they have such liberal use of that fucking breaking banner. It is ridiculous. And they had one of those. I went on CBR. I clicked on like a Robot 6 ad or like article or something like that on Twitter. Clicked there, and then they had the banner across the top, and it said something like Arrow recap, and it spoiled something that happened in the episode of Arrow. And I'm like, in the headline, I'm like, what is this shit? Like, at what point does like, at what point did like spoiling what's going to happen become like everything we're looking for in our news? And I think that people themselves are complicit for it, but like it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with like, the anniversary issues. Like part of the reason why that Wolverine moment with the adamantium like meant so much to us was we didn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. And it's like I kind of wonder if like this relationship with wanting news faster and wanting to know things that happen before they happen is like impacting our relationship with the medium. And I know that sounds like really like kind of pretentious maybe, but it's like sometimes like I feel like people probably loved comics more than they did in the 90s, more than they did now, even though I think like objectively comics are better now than they were then. Mm-hmm. And it's because like back then, like everything just felt like a bigger deal. And
I don't think that sounds pretentious at all. I think it's 100% correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really weird. It's like a weird place to be, and it's like I know comics want to be like everybody else, and like they want everyone faunching on the bit to like get the new information before it comes out, and like find out how big Jubilee's role is in the next movie, and yada yada yada. But it's just like when you're spoiling an issue that comes out on Wednesday for like no reason besides traffic, what is your objective as a site?
Yeah, I don't get it all. And then again, with DC, if they are playing ball with it, like I do know that when I looked at that DC Rebirth designs for Teen Titans, this is the very first paragraph. Even as the internet is all abuzz with leaked details of next week's DC Universe Rebirth #1, DC Comics has provided CBR with an exclusive first look at John Boy. We're like, wait, why are you giving them exclusive anything if they're spoiling stuff?
Yeah.
I would be going the opposite direction. And I'd be like, you guys don't get anything else.
You MFers are cut off. Cut off.
No more of the teat for you. No more milk.
Well, and I wanted to actually ask you, because like incredibly enough, this month marks 7 years of me writing about comics, which is disgusting. And you know, I remember our first like meeting when we were planning out Four Color News and Brews and Colati Brothers, and like we were talking about it and everything, and it's like,
oh, not when I bomb rushed you in the toilet.
no, well that we're not going to explain that just because it sounds so incredibly like it's special.
Yes,
I'm just gonna say special. Yeah, Brandon and I met in the toilet and magic happened. Anyways, but like when we met in Colati Brothers and we planned it out and we were so jacked about it and everything. But it is interesting to see how much like writing about comics has changed. And it's like and it's the same thing about writing about anything though. It's like speed is number one. And it's like, it's all about getting it up first, and it has nothing to do with getting it up right. And you look at like sites and stuff like Bleeding. I mean, as much as like I've said this before, I actually like Rich Johnson for the explicit purpose of the fact that he owns up to who he is. He always
smut.
What's that?
He knows he's smut,
and he doesn't care. He like that's
his bread and butter.
That's what he wants.
Yep,
but
I respect that.
And like the thing is he's all about getting up fast, whether or not he spells words correct, whether or not he gets creators' names right. I mean, that's like those are things that happen. But it's interesting to see like other main sites transitioning into that direction, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, like my articles, like a lot of them I research for months at a time. Like this article, like the last two or the next two articles I'm going to do, big articles I've been putting together. Like one has only been being put together for like 2 weeks. The other one's been being put together since 2015. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, like that's obviously completely different. And I'm not even trying to make money off my site, but it's like, it's weird when like the central objective of comic sites are chasing away people like you and me who are comic fans, who should be their main readership. Doesn't that seem really strange?
Yeah, real quick though, because you actually have been walking all over one of my questions for you that I had at the end. Oh. So we might as well just, if you want to just continue this train of thought real quick, because you're already on it. The question was, what's changed the most in comics journalism in 7 years?
Oh, okay.
And it sounds like you're saying exactly the answer to that question.
Yeah. So just for listeners, because it's the 50th episode and it was like a special deal. Like actually, I don't remember who it was. Somebody actually suggested on Twitter that I have somebody interview me for the episode instead of me interviewing somebody for the episode. And so we decided to work in 5 questions where Brandon asked me some stuff to answer. And yeah, I mean, as far as like that first question, if it is like, you know, what's changed the most about it, it's the same thing that's changed for all types of journalism. It's like, you know, the what you need to do is like, you need content, you need articles, and whether or not that means running like what you know to be more or less fake rumors about movies, or running spoilers for a comic that doesn't come out for 5 days, or I don't know, like writing 700 articles about this week's episode of The Walking Dead or something like that. Like that is it. I mean, like I know a lot of people complain about the fact that comic sites are just loaded up with movies and TV shows, but at least a lot of those movies and TV shows are ostensibly comic related. It's when you start getting to the stuff that is just like kind of TMZ-ish. Like I don't know what those sites are trying to do short of making money, and it's like, that's fine if that's what you want to do and stuff, but don't pretend to be something you're not. Like right. don't talk poorly about Rich Johnson out one side of your mouth and then do the same thing out the other side.
Yep, I agree.
Oh man, did I just take a hot take?
Yeah, it was good though. I liked it. I mean, yeah, I like it. I mean, my answer would be there used to be an awesome website called Multiversity Comics. I don't even know if they're in business anymore, but
oh damn, you getting nasty. You getting nasty.
Hot fire.
No comment. I like people there. I don't know. I do my thing. They do their thing. Everybody does their thing. Whatever. But I don't know. Like everyone.
I just don't know the last time I've been on that site.
Oh, everyone can do what they want. But at the same time, I feel like it's just such a bad precedent to set for what you're doing as a website. And it's like, once you open Pandora's box, as DC knows, you can never close it because you will never use that character again.
Do you think she'll be in this? I hope she's in
That's
Rebirth.
Her fucking hand.
I hope so.
The thing that really bothers me about like Flashpoint is like, it doesn't even have to do with the fact that comic was not good or that it led into a lot of bad comics. It has to do with the fact that they introduced Pandora and then never did anything with her. Like they never explained why she was so essential and why she was the person who knew this stuff. Like, we know she's Pandora. Okay. So what was the big deal? It was kind of like in what was the one, Original Sin, where Nick Fury told Thor something that made him unworthy. Like, I want to know what he whispered to him so badly.
I still think we'll get that.
Well, Jason Aaron said he's still building to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, they've got to.
I don't think DC is still building to Pandora's revelation.
Well, I know that there was the Trinity of Sin book or miniseries, Pandora, and maybe that revealed something, but there was no way I was reading it. So for all I know, they have explained it. I just
I asked somebody about that, like somebody who'd actually read that, and they said it didn't explain anything. I remember reading the first issue; it was garbage. It was so bad. I
was not even gonna do it. I couldn't do it.
I thought we reviewed that for 4-Color. Maybe not.
Maybe we did. I don't know.
Apparently, we both blacked it out. It's no Youngblood, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. What's your question number 2?
Yes. Okay. Number 2. I got to restructure this now. Let's go with a less hot take one. What is, because Rebirth is coming, and we're seeing the end of the DC Universe as we know it. We recently saw the end of the Ultimate Universe. There's a lot of ends coming around. Mm-hmm. So what was your favorite last issue of a comic ever?
Ooh. Well, okay. So I'm going to do a superhero edition, and I'm going to do a, not superhero edition. So favorite last issue, not superhero edition, is Why the Last Man 60.
Yeah.
I like a lot of people I don't think were super satisfied with it, but I thought it was a perfect way to end it, given the fact that I don't know, that last page is maybe the best last page in any comic I've ever read.
Symbolically, it was perfect.
It was perfect, and I love that it was Alas, because it's Alas Yorick and all that. But anyways, I thought that was perfect. I thought it was such a fitting end for the characters. It left everything perfectly, and it's also one of my favorite comics ever. The book itself. So it just paid off everything that I was personally invested in incredibly well. Superhero edition, and I know you're gonna be totally down with this, and it kind of doesn't count as a real last issue, but you and me were both huge Age of Apocalypse fans. Age of Apocalypse Omega, wasn't it? You remember when the universe ended and Magneto and Rogue were kind of chilling together and everything was going to white and everything?
Yep.
Oh man, I remember reading that, and I'm just thinking about it right now, and I'm getting chills because it was so badass. I remember just being oh my god, this universe is actually ending. It's crazy. This is so wild. That was one of the things I love the most about Age of Apocalypse is it may have been temporary change, but it was real change. It
felt real as shit too at the time.
Yeah. And so,
because again, we did not have the internet to tell us it was not.
Yeah, exactly. So we didn't know what was coming next, but I remember with when they saved the day and when they sent God, was it Bishop that they sent back to save? Yeah, when to save Xavier. I mean, that was just mind blowing. That was such a game changer for me. So yeah, that would be my superhero edition one.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. I'd have to say most of the New 52.
That's your favorite change?
Issue 52 of most of the New 52.
Just because it's ending?
Yes.
Okay.
Mercy kill.
It's being rebirthed.
I have not read this little DC since back when I was broke in freshman year of college, and that was not by choice. This is
strictly brokenness was driving that. This time you're just I don't care.
Yeah. So, oh well. All right. Let's see. Okay, so we are about almost halfway through the year. At this point, what are you reading that you really love? What can you recommend to people that maybe people aren't reading? And what would you steer people away from?
What would I steer people away from? Oh, man. I honestly, as you know, I'm crazy mercenary when it comes to my reading lists. And so I cut books as soon as I'm out on them. And sometimes I don't even cut them when I'm out on them. I'm just not as into them as I once was.
I could feel the decline.
Yeah, I could feel it. Okay. Man, what's crazy is lately I've been reading because I just listed out all those Darwin cookbooks I was reading, and I also listed out all that Marvel Unlimited I was reading. So I've been reading a lot of old comics, which is a great sign. Let's see. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna grab some stuff. I just grabbed a big pile of comics.
Nice.
Okay, so let's see. Flipping through comics. I don't know if you're even still reading it, but I still love Chew, and Chew's final arc is coming up, and it's crazy to think that book is finally ending. And I love the fact that it's I've always felt it's always had weird symmetry to my writing because we started right when it was starting, and it's just it's been developing and developing right along. And I don't know, I've always been cool with John and Rob, so that one's I'm super into. Okay, here's one I can actually say that I've stepped away from, and it's kind of like, it's for varying reasons, but I dropped Sex Criminals finally.
Oh yeah.
And the reason why was because like the book never comes out, and like I might as well just switch to trade if I want, but also because like it was taking so long between issues. I don't know, I wasn't really like feeling anything anymore. It was kind of like I was like the porn star character in the comic that like just doesn't feel anything when she has sex, and I'm like that except for when I read it. I'm just like, okay, like this is nice, but like it's been so long since I've read this, I don't even know why this matters anymore. So I'm like maybe switching to trade, but like sometimes when I say switch to trade, it just really means it's done, and that might be the case. I'm still really enjoying Archie and Jughead. Both of them are very entertaining. Let's see. Oh my god. Obviously, this is a old list of comics because I just have Manhattan Projects come across. I really am. One comic I really, really, really am loving is Spider-Woman, from Dennis Hopeless and Javier Rodriguez. Javier Rodriguez is maybe like, he's one of my favorite artists right now, and he's just
he's awesome,
amazing. He's just done such great work on that book. And like, I don't, have you read that at all?
I'm not reading it. I liked his work. He did that Black Cat mini series, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and that was awesome.
You should read it. Just like the first volume of the first arc of the new volume is all about Jessica Drew having a kid. And it was like, apparently people who were parents were like super moved by it and stuff. And I was just like, wow, this is really good.
I think I steered clear of it just because it felt so much like Catwoman 1 year later.
Yeah, I could see that. But no, I mean, I really, really like it. Let's see.
I'll check it out. It's got to be on Limited by now, right?
Yeah, I think the first issue will probably be on there. I don't know, man. Like, I like those are. Oh, I really like The Fix. The Fix is awesome. The Fix from Nick Spencer and Steve Lieber. It's like the same guys who are doing Superior Foes of Spider-Man. I've really liked the second arc of Injection. I think that book has taken it to the next level. I still love Squirrel Girl. I don't know, man. Like it's weird that I don't immediately have things that I'm like jumping out. Oh, I am actually really loving the Somni and Mark Waid and Matt Wilson Black Widow stuff. That was super rad.
That is super rad. That is a super cool book.
That first issue was so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, okay. So here's where I'm going to go slightly negative. I didn't. Wait, actually, really quick. I love The Vision. The Vision is one of my favorites.
That's a good book.
Okay, so one book that I have not been super impressed by that like was super hyped and it's crazy to say that given how much I said I liked the character earlier, is like I haven't really liked the Ta-Nehisi and Brian Stelfreeze, or Ta-Nehisi Coates and Brian Stelfreeze Black Panther.
So I feel like people are going to burn your show down because I'm going to agree with you.
I think it's really boring.
Boring, super boring. Like I feel like the writing is good, but the story is not.
Yeah, like it's well written and it's taking some interesting directions, but like the plot itself has like there's no weight to it, and there's no like, it's like interesting character stuff with like the two former Dora Milaje women who like, you know, were yeah, like they like that stuff is interesting, and like the stuff with like the psychic woman who's like the villain is interesting, and Black Panther's stuff himself is interesting, and Brian Stelfreeze's like art is great. Especially I love like how he does Black Panther's helmet, like how it like becomes all mechanized and comes down off his face. But the book itself is less than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on this like real briefly, is it doesn't feel like there's any real importance to the story. There's nothing there that like makes me buy in and like worry about the characters or feel any kind of emotional attachment at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it's odd. Like it's not like an egregiously bad book.
No,
it's just not a very interesting one, and I find that to be really surprising, especially given the fact that it seems like kind of universally beloved.
Yeah, people talk about like it's the second coming of Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I might,
which I didn't buy into that hype either, though. So,
ooh, God, this is getting dark.
Hot takes.
I bought the first two issues. I thought the first issue was pretty good. The second issue almost put me to sleep, and you know that's like the kiss of death for me.
Yeah.
I might check out the third issue. I might just wait for Unlimited if I'm being totally honest, but it's just kind of boring.
Yeah, anyway. I'm good. That's a Marvel Unlimited book for me.
Yeah. All right. What's the next question?
All right. Next question is, All right, the next two are a lot lighter. They're a little more fun.
Yay, fun!
Yay! So, again, longtime comic book fan. So, with that in mind, any creator is available. Any creator, living, dead, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
If you could pick a creative team to tell your story in graphic novel form, who would you choose?
Oh. Well, first off, I have to say one book I forgot was Deadly Class, which is my favorite book. Yep. I love that comic. So let's see. I mean, he's my favorite writer, and I just like his voice, and I feel like I've always tried, like, not that I've tried, but I feel like I could be a character in his story, which sounds really ridiculous, but Brian K. Vaughan would be the writer. Artist. The story of my life. God, that'd be a fucking boring comic.
I didn't say it had to be entertaining. I just said.
Let's see. God, Brian K. Vaughan and I have to be a really good character artist.
Rob Liefeld?
What's that?
Rob
Yes,
Liefeld.
Rob Liefeld nailed it. No, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna say Javier Rodriguez, Brian K. Vaughan and Javier Rodriguez, or I could do a very similar route and just go Marcos Martin. Actually, God, now I kind of want to go Darwin Cook.
You can't go wrong with any of those three.
Yeah,
honestly. You could just do like they do in modern comics and rotate out artists.
Yeah, how about that? How about each of them has? All right, here's what we're gonna do. Brian K. Vaughan.
It's your story, David. You do what you want.
Brian K. Vaughan's going to be writing all of it. The first 1 through 10 will be drawn and colored, or the first 10 years of my life will be drawn and colored by Javier Rodriguez. The teenage years will be by Marcos Martin. And then my 20s will be drawn by Darwin Cook, because it's a great blend of the new frontier and Parker. Not that I was a criminal, but I was definitely a lot more lascivious than I was during my younger years. And then the 30s, who the fuck knows? We're not through that arc yet, so I can't really say.
Nice, I like it.
Oh, and it'll also the second arc will be colored by Munsa Vicente, and the third one will be colored by Dave Stewart.
Who's doing your covers, Dave Stewart?
Oh, no, not Dave Stewart. Let's see. Covers. Jean-Paul Leon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that book would be so much better than my life deserves.
Okay. So the third and final comic or question, I told you I was going to go all Barbara Walters on you.
Barbara Walters.
And one question she likes to ask people questions like, what kind of tree would you be and why? So what I'm going to ask you is, comic book pages are made of trees. So if you could be any tree to be made into a comic book that would be used in your life story with the creative team that you just gave, what kind of tree would you be to be cut down to become a comic book page?
Holy shit. That is... God, I really wish I knew more about trees now.
You wanted left field. I got you one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go with eucalyptus because I really like koalas. And I like the fact that I could provide their environment. And then when they move on from me, they could become the tree that becomes the comic. And it would become my comic. So the koala tree will be cut down and then it will be, turned into paper form that will be made into my graphic novel.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah. I honestly know staggeringly little about names of trees, and I don't know. I don't even know where I would have gone if I didn't have that one. That would have been dark. Anyways, well, those were 5 excellent questions. Thank you for going super outside the box with that. Did she actually ask people what kind of tree they would be?
Yeah, and just random questions, and then dives into how that develops their personality and stuff like that.
Oh man, I thought you were going to ask me something food related. I was like, man, what kind of sandwich would I be? Oh, man. And would I eat myself?
See, I figure well-tread ground is food.
Oh, God, yeah.
Comic book arcs,
Mm-hmm.
Creative teams in general. So I was trying to apply some of those things into looser things that I don't believe we've talked about. I don't think we've ever come up with creative teams for a book for ourselves.
As long as you don't bring up sports, because I've gotten only 5-star reviews for Off Panel on iTunes. I've gotten 19 ratings, and I got 1 2-star review from this one guy who was like, "Great podcast. You talk about sports too much."
Well, we've already covered some of that earlier, so you're screwed. You're getting 2 stars.
Oh,
you
no,
might get 1 because he warned you the first time.
He's like, I'm
too.
coming back. You should have known better. Don't talk about sports no more. Here's your 1 star. I'm like, you can't review me twice. This sucks.
I wouldn't do that, sir. Clock Stomper will find you.
Clock Stomper will. Yeah, and Clock Stomper is totally team sports.
Is he?
Yeah, I think so. Like
I thought you meant like that was the name of a viewer you had or something.
No, wait, what?
I thought you were saying like Clock Stomper was somebody called Team Sport.
No. He
commenting on everything. I was like, really? He's around still? That's amazing.
I am sure he is around. Like, I think that he made like a forlorn tweet to me one time saying that he doesn't read comics as much as he used to after 4-Color went away. So we have apparently ruined Clock Stomper's life.
I'm sorry, Clock Stomper.
I'm sorry, Clock Stomper. All right, that's it. This was the 50th anniversary or 50th episode of Off Panel. Not technically, I think there's something like 55 episodes or something like that, but it's the 50th that counts. The actual number 50 with that holofoil cover and like a Gambit card on there that's hologram and like it's scratch and sniff and it smells like BLTs.
They are doing scratch and sniff now. You even get strawberry shortcake and they're scratch and sniff.
They did that for an issue of Chew that was like a special variant for San Diego Comic-Con.
They did it for a Harley comic too, and like one of the scratches was weed.
Oh, really?
I was really surprised that DC threw that on there, and it really did smell like weed.
I am very, very surprised that they threw it on there too.
Somebody at my comic shop was like, "Check this out, it smells like weed," and I was like, "Oh, weed got on the comic?" And they're like, "No, it's a scratch and sniff on the Harley," and I was like, "What?"
Is she like known for smoking weed or something?
I have no clue. It was a bunch of random smells. So they had like a bunch of little pictures that you could scratch, and they all had different scents. And then all through the comic, it was like a scratch and sniff issue.
That is really bizarre.
It came out a couple years ago, I want to say.
I remember hearing about that, but I don't know why they would make weed one of the smells. That just makes no sense.
I don't either. And I don't know why DC would be like, you know what? That's definitely approved.
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking, guys?
Well, if you actually scratch your screen while listening to this, it will smell like weed. No, it won't. Don't scratch your screen. That's a terrible idea. Horrible suggestion. All right. Thanks for coming on, Brandon. Great episode.
Yeah, for sure. Always fun.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel from Sketch.com. You can find this week's guest, Brandon Burpee, on Twitter at Brandon Burpee. You can find more sketch content at Sketched. That's SKTCHD.com. Follow us on Twitter at SketchComic. Like us on Facebook at /Sketched. And if you're an iTunes listener, give us a rating or review. Thanks for listening and tune in next week for another episode.